Hey, welcome back to the Coffee Squad podcast. It's Will and Jake. We're joined by special guest AP today. We are going to be talking about physical security, and this is part 3 of our Security 101 series. And let's get going. First off, Adam's been with us before. He has spent 20 years in the U.S. Army. He's a physical security expert. Within the U.S. Special Operations Command. Once he retired from the Army, he continued working for USASOC, and he was in charge of physical security for all of the USASOC Command. He is also pursuing his master's degree and provides physical security consulting. Physical security consulting to many companies. Adam, why don't you go ahead and introduce anything I didn't miss? I know you got some great grandkids and whatever else you want to talk about.
Yeah, so
that he has great grandkids. Hold on.
Great as in awesome kids,
Awesome.
not
Okay,
great
man,
grandkids.
Man, I thought AP was just going to get up and walk away, Will. Like, oh my gosh.
So that's pretty accurate. I did 23 years in the Army. My last 8 years was out supporting a special operations group at Fort Bragg. After retirement, I went and worked for USASOC in a couple different roles, a couple different units, both as a contractor and now as an independent contractor. I provide physical security support to several companies, one of which is Freedom Consulting. And it's a pleasure to be here with you guys today again. And hopefully we could put out some good information for folks, try and secure us a little bit better. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Excellent. How you doing this morning,
man?
Good.
Hey, AP, great to have you on. I mean, we always appreciate you and, your insight and your wisdom that you provide. You always provide an extra little twist, an extra insight to me. I mean, you were kind of one of my mentors. So it's always great kind of having you on, picking your brain. For our listeners out there, this Home Security 101, or this is part 3, like Will said, and we're just kind of breaking this down a little easier, hitting on key terms and topics. And Adam's going to kind of go through this physical security part 1. We're going to talk about what an asset is and a little bit of lighting, and just kind of go through some basic terminology today with AP here. So, but before we do that, let's have a few questions, right? New year. A new Will, a new Adam, a new Jake, maybe, probably not. But how's everyone's holidays?
Not too bad. Pretty quiet. It was just me and the wife because the kids are up at Belvoir now, and they were kind of quarantined. Son-in-law's up there with the old guard, and I guess someone in the office came up with COVID. So, they didn't make it down for the holidays, but it was quiet. It was very quiet. So it was kind of different, but hopefully soon we'll get this all figured out and we'll all be able to get back together.
Yeah.
See where it goes.
Yeah. How was yours, Will?
It's quiet. I spent it with the kids, we're used to having extended family come and spend Christmas with us, and this is kind of the first year in a while that we haven't had somebody, or we haven't been somewhere. So yeah, it's pretty quiet. What about you?
Most of our family lives on the West Coast, so it's not a whole lot of change for us. So my in-laws moved out here a few years ago, so they came over. My brother-in-law came over, and that was it. I know I cooked my ass off, so
nice.
Which I like to do.
Yeah.
So I made like lobster bisque, smoked a prime rib, and all that kind of fun stuff. So
I know where I'm going for Christmas next year.
Yeah, please do. So I wasn't thinking. When I bought the prime rib, I'm like, yeah, just give me a 6 bone, and I didn't realize how big a 6 bone was, man. It was massive. My wife's like, what are you doing with that? So, yeah, there's a lot of waste. So, yeah. So, well, cool.
Could have broke it down and aged it.
I probably should have, thinking back, but when you're in a rush and just stuff's going on, and I don't know. Yeah, fed the neighborhood. It's all right.
That's cool.
So, and there's a lot. I live in like a more retirement area, so a lot of old people. So, have the little boys knock on the doors, drop off Christmas dinner.
Cool.
So
that's cool. Very cool.
So, What are you drinking this morning, Jake?
Man, what am I not drinking this morning? So I started.
I like the color.
Hey, man, it's
Matches your eyes.
brings them out, doesn't it? So drinking it's called, what is this called? It's a keto, helps you get into ketosis faster. Approve it, little like morning keto boost thing with a bunch of vitamin C. I don't know. My wife makes this concoction. It's pretty dang good though. And then typical water, and then I got a Bengal spice tea. And Will, I read what the flavor profile is supposed to be. So I'm going to wow everyone who has followed us before in the past and knows about Will's coffee connoisseurship, if that's even a word. But so this Bengal spice tea, it has a hint of cardamom. It has some anise, some cinnamon, some allspice. And if you add milk and sugar to it, it's supposed to taste like a chai tea. So, yeah, there you go, man.
Okay. Yeah. I know. I get it. I see why you guys give me a hard time now. Yeah.
Sounds pretty bad, doesn't it?
Kind of pinkies up.
Oh, yeah. So, Adam, just so you know, when we had Ray on right before we closed out 2020, Will was saying some pretty uppity stuff. And so if you see me do this, Adam, it's to Will. Saying, hey, you're being uppity right now. So if you hear anything and I miss it, just put your pinky up. Pinky's up.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So poor Will, man. He gets. I think every week he probably despises doing the podcast because he knows just a bunch of hate's coming his way. So
I'm used to it.
Oh, yeah.
What about you, Adam? What are you drinking this morning?
So I've got the pretty much the end of my bag of Black Rifle AK blend. I'm gonna have to order more, I guess. So seems to be my go-to here lately.
Yeah, that's a good one.
What you drinking? Black Rifle too? Will?
Oh yeah, I've got my Silencer Smooth. So I'm a part of their coffee club, so I get a new bag every month. And so this month was Silencer Smooth, which is their light roast. It's kind of got hints of fruit and a mild flavor. I like it. It's good. And then I got my H2O kicking next to me. So.
Oh yeah, that too.
Did you guys see Black Rifles? I don't know if it's their newer ad, but at Bass Pro Shops.
Oh yeah, their production is outstanding. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw the soft versus sci-fi one here not too long ago.
Yep. That's pretty funny too.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
So they just started rolling out nationwide commercials, so you'll start seeing them on like local channels.
Yeah,
and stuff
I saw
like
one
that,
last night, as a matter of fact. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Great company, man. I mean, what a great concept too.
Oh yeah,
definitely. All right, so I guess we should get this thing kicked off and start talking about some home physical security, part 1 with AP. So Adam, I guess the first thing we need to know is, how do you identify your assets?
So I think most importantly, what is important to you, right? So what do you have in your home or around your home, in your yard, that you might want to protect? Is it valuables? Is it for a lot of us in our community? It's guns. Dudes have a safe full of guns, knives, equipment for either hunting or outdoors. And then you've got, all your wife's stuff, the jewelry and your electronics and all those items that if someone were to come into your home, they could quite possibly easily grab and just run out the door, right? I think one of the last statistics I saw was home invasion, burglary type incident takes under 2 minutes to get out, get what they need, and go. Most of them happen during the day. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of what is important to you. For most of us, it's probably obviously our family, our kids, our wife, husband, whatever it may be. And just identifying that, and then from that, building your security posture around what you believe to be important to you, right?
So you kind of talked about, like whether it's your car, something in your yard, a tangible thing, and then a life of an asset. And so when someone's prioritizing their assets, what advice do you give them of like, hey, we're talking, again, we're trying to break this down for the average homeowner, maybe even a small business owner, right, who can't afford a security consultant to come out and help them. So how would you help them break down, like, all right, to prioritize their assets, right? When you've gone out to other customers and stuff, how do you do that?
Yeah. So again, I think it's what is most important to you. What's financially important to you? What's intangibles. Again, going back to the life thing. The line I try to convey to people is you have very little control over what that criminal element is going to do. Right? You can set your posture up to where you're defending against, you're portraying you've got your cameras out, you've got your signs out, you've got your decals on the window. Someone who's looking at your place knows that, this guy has got his doors and windows secured. He's locking his gate. He's got security lighting up. Maybe he's got a dog that's going to alert if I go snooping around. But he or she is the one who's going to determine when they're going to come into your home, right? And it's crazy. A lot of people think. I had a buddy a couple of years back, lifelong MP, had been to combat several times, and we were talking about home security, and he was going to shotgun for home security, and I'm like, what are you trying to do? And he's like, well, I wanted to keep it by the bed, and I'm going to load it up with buckshot loaded with rock salt. I'm like, dude, why are you're going to shoot someone at night with rock salt? I mean, what are you trying to? Someone's coming into your home at 2 o'clock in the morning while you're asleep. They're not there for any reason other than bad, right? You need to be able to defend yourself, and if that means taking someone else's life in the process, then you've got to do what you got to do to protect your family. So I don't think loading up a shotgun. I don't know, personal preference. Leaving a shotgun by your bed, you're not going to wake up and the perpetrator gets that shotgun, then you're in a whole different situation. So,
well, I mean, we just heard about that Texas pastor, right? He had the gun.
Yeah, exactly.
And the criminal, the person who was just arrested for, I think he was like a 21, 22-year-old kid who was on the run from the cops. The little bit of information I read about it, but turned and used that gun against him. So I know we're going to have a podcast on this later on towards the tail end of this whole series about guns and how to use them and that kind of stuff. Like talk about guns as using it as protection, because like you just said, your buddy there at MP combat several times, wants to have a shotgun with buckshot and rock salt. Sound like a staggered thing. I mean, I'd probably do buckshot with a slug, with buckshot and a slug, but hey,
real. Yeah,
but
I'm not going to shoot it with rock salt. I can shoot it with double R.
I'm not interested in protecting my home, my wife, and kids with rock salt. I mean, it's going to hurt like hell. But I don't want to hurt someone who's breaking in my house, like you said, at 2 a.m. It's more
eliminate threat.
Yeah. And hopefully, if someone does break into your home and they hear that rack of a shotgun, I don't think a shotgun's a bad self-defense.
No, I don't either.
You have it at home if you don't shoot a lot. But we'll have that discussion another time.
Absolutely. But I think it's just what is important to you. What are you trying to protect? Are you trying to just protect it from being stolen or damaged or both? Or and there's ways of doing that. Securing your home, insuring your valuables. USAA. I use USAA. I've got a policy that protects my guns and the wife's valuables and some of the other stuff in the house. So, and it's fairly cheap to do that. I mean, you just add it onto your policy, and it's a couple dollars a month. And you can. And the good thing about the USAA, and I'm not trying to plug USAA or anything, but the good thing about them, especially with guns, I mean, if it's loss or damage. So if something happens, you're out hunting and you drop your shotgun out of a tree stand or your rifle out of a tree stand, and you bust it. I mean, they cover that kind of stuff. So just something to think about.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. I know I have my wife's valuables, her wedding ring, just some diamond earrings, that kind of stuff on the policy, but I've never thought about putting my guns on there. And so that's a
Yeah,
good way.
and I think it was.
Yeah.
I think it's only like I think I pay like 125 a year
That's
for
nothing.
the guns. Yeah, that's nothing. So if you lose a gun, or 4 or 5 of your guns, God forbid, would get stolen, it would be great to have that, to be able to replace those. So
I know one thing you taught me in the course you taught, Adam, was, whenever we're talking to clients, and this has always stuck out to me, this is probably one of the first things I always do whenever, whether it's, a CEO of a Fortune 500 company or ultra high net worth individual, or just, an average person, one of my neighbors, right, who wants to talk to me about security is, I always ask them, what keeps you up at night? And so if you're a homeowner and you go, let's say we just got back from the holidays, right? Let's say you're one of those homeowners that traveled away for the holidays. When you leave your house to go on vacation, what is one thing as you're like driving away? Are you like, oh man, did I lock the doors? Did I do this? So and why are you doing that? And so it's that mindset of what are you trying to protect and ensure that someone, whether, of course, it's probably your family. That's probably the number one thing that most homeowners are, whether it's their life or their wife's life or their children or spouse, whatever it may be, looking at that life. And then other than that, it's what tangible things are you trying to protect? And I would, most people that I've talked to have had their home broken into. My parents live in California. And right now,
It's legal there now, right?
The cops don't do anything. So my parents' house has been broken into numerous times. My parents refused to move. It's the house I grew up in. It's their castle, right? And it's a great neighborhood. But the homeless problem out there has just multiplied so bad. Their house, for a while was constantly getting broken into. And I think it's the violation. It's not so much what they took. You
no longer feel secure.
It's that it's like they broke into my mind. Yeah, one time they didn't take anything. They just, I think my mom spooked them coming in and they ran out, but they destroyed the bathroom. And she's like, of all things, like why? So, also think about that, like when you're that violation. And so I know we're going to talk about, later on in the series of, pushing it out.
Yeah. So what I used to tell people when I was a police officer is think what you protect as far as your asset. There's a fire and you have 5 minutes to get whatever you need out of the house. What are you grabbing? And that's kind of what your top priorities for your assets are. You might think it's your big screen TV, but it ends up being a ring that your grandfather passed down or something like that, so that kind of gives them a mindset to how to protect and what they really want to protect. Yeah.
Like Adam was saying, I mean, he brought up USAA, and look, I'm a USAA insurance member. Like,
me too. We all are. Yeah.
I will, because I think they're freaking phenomenal. I had my house flooded, or it wasn't really flooded, but fridge leaked and did about $25,000-$30,000 worth of damage, and they've been nothing but phenomenal. Insurance, when you're thinking of an asset, I think it's great to think of insurance, right? And I think, Adam, you bring up a super valuable point of, hey, if you can insure it and it's going to be covered,
do it. Yeah.
And brings back to Will's point is, you have 5 minutes to get whatever you can. What are you going to take? Is it your shotgun that was your great grandfather's, maybe, or is it a photo album or something else, or a hard drive with all your kids, grandkids, wedding photos, everything else, things, and that's up to each individual to realize, what is that important to them to take. And I think my advice is, hey, if insurance is going to cover it,
let them.
To me, the asset for your house is what cannot be replaced. Your family, something that's been passed down through generations that they no longer, that's means something to you. To me, that would be my assets. The big screen TV or even the guns, unless it's an heirloom type gun, those can all be replaced. And insurance, that's what insurance is for. If you have insurance. Now, if you don't have insurance, you need to get it. But I understand everybody's situation is different. But
yeah. And you don't just have to have a safe for guns, right? A lot of people get this, I need to have a safes.
I have a document fire safe.
Yeah, safes come in all shapes and sizes, right? So if you're not a gun owner, I definitely recommend, buying a safe. And I had my sister-in-law here, and she was talking to me about, buying a gun safe, and then she wants, a safe to put a pistol in and be able to put, some of her valuables in. And so she was looking at these portable safes. And I just remember saying like, hey, look, how much does that thing weigh? I think it's like 50, 60 pounds. I was like, do you think it's that hard for a thief to literally just to grab that and run out with it? So those are some things to think about too. If you're going to buy a small safe, even check at your hotel. If you look at your hotel safes, if you can grab that thing and pull it out, is your stuff really that safe? So, make sure that safe, if you do have one in your home, it's bolted down, it's secured. You can even, you could, if you wanted to, if you're that concerned with the valuables in there, put a motion sensor on that through your alarm system, that kind of stuff. So
I would also make sure it's a fire safe.
Yep.
One that's going to live through a burn, because there are cheap safes out there. I mean, I've got one. I've got multiple safes, but one of my safes is just a cheap safe that I keep next to my bed, and that's where I keep my pistol locked up. But I mean,
what's the combo to that?
None ya business.
That's a lot of letters to remember, man.
Yeah, I know. At 4 a.m. it's really rough to punch it in.
I bet.
Yeah.
But yeah, like a fire safe, I think my gun safe is 90 minutes. I want to say it's a Canon gun safe, but it's little things like that, and I think that's what this Home Security 101, that's what this podcast and this whole series is about is, Adam really helped us identify, and hopefully for our listeners and viewers out there, of what an asset is. And we've had this great conversation, and we've had a little bit of conversation about how to protect it, with a safe and kind of going through that stuff. So it's just those little tidbits of information as a homeowner, as a small business owner to think about. You can always hop on and ask us questions whenever you want throughout the website and through the chat there. But yeah, think about these stuff as a homeowner, as a small business owner, of what am I trying to protect? What keeps me up at night? And how do I best protect that? And if you don't know, reach out to us. We have plenty of ideas, plenty of solutions out there to help you with that. So, we briefly mentioned, Adam, of, we've talked about securing our valuables, but, how do we deter? And we're going to kind of talk about the 4Ds here in a minute, but what are some deterrence measures too, to help keep that criminal, that crook, from wanting, to break in? So we're talking about that criminal, that nefarious actor coming from the outside in, not an inside attack, but, someone from outside in. What are some deterrence measures that you recommend?
So for your home, I think the biggest things are, lighting, at night. What does your home look like from the outside? Are there large areas, maybe on the side of the home or the back of the home, where there's not sufficient lighting, and someone could very easily walk in undetected and get to the perimeter of your home, the walls. Having a camera, a lot of people, it is pretty commonplace today to have a camera in the front, camera in the back, camera looking down the side, camera looking down the driveway, camera on the front porch, security lighting on most of the corners, the stickers on the window, and then just keeping your garage door shut. Like you were talking about, Jake, you live in I know where you live in a golf community. I do too, and it's a lot of older retired people in their mid 70s, and it's pretty common for them to just walk out of their house to go walk their dog or walk down the street to the neighbor's house and leave their garage door wide open, and they probably didn't lock their home door inside the garage. So,
Adam, were you driving by and spying on me yesterday?
No, did you have your garage door open all day?
I did. I went for a walk, walked the dog, took the boys on a bike ride, left the garage door open, unlocked, lights on.
I
feel like
that kind of goes back to your environment, though. I mean, depending on where you're at, I grew up in the middle of Montana on 20 acres. My nearest neighbor was over a mile away.
Right.
I wasn't really worried about closing the garage if I was out back or something, So I think your environment has a lot to do with it too.
Absolutely. But and when I talk to the neighbors and they thought, what do you do? And I'm like, And then we, eventually get to the, hey, what should I do about this? And I'm amazed at how many people have zero, because, they think they live in this golf community. And I will tell you that the nosy neighbor thing is alive and well. You can't do anything in a community like this without, oh yeah, I saw that you put up a whatever in your backyard. I'm like, oh my God, like, that's just the way it is, right? And it's good and bad. It's that people are watching out for each other. Like the last two hurricanes we've had, I've gone around all my neighbors and said, hey, are you guys staying? If you're not, you want me to keep an eye on your place. That way that no one's there. If I see a flashlight at 2 a.m, I know someone not supposed to be there is in your house. And they're like, wow, I never even thought about that. So I think it's a lot of the little things, just making yourself, presenting yourself as, you're aware of your surroundings and you're keeping an eye on your stuff, keeping your vehicles. If you park in the driveway, keep your vehicles locked,
I know the local police here, they send out like a little Facebook reminder every night. It's 9 p.m. Have you done your security check? And they walk people through a security check. Like, hey, if you parked your car out in the driveway, make sure it's locked. Take all your valuables out, make sure it's locked. Again, things that we all here consider very basic, but this is a life we've lived in the military as a police officer, in various functions throughout life where we take it for granted, the knowledge that we have. And then they, hey, have you walk around the outside, leave a light on outside, and then make sure all your doors and windows are locked. And it's a simple little reminder every single night. Just to remind people, again, I live in a retirement older community. Like Adam said, you got the nosy neighbors that you just want to strangle half the time because they think they're the neighborhood mayor and the police. And, they're the I have one guy who thinks he's the king of the neighborhood, telling people what Christmas ornaments they can put up and can't put up. But at the same time, as much as I hate the dude, and I literally do, he's so on it, man. Like that, he is the nosiest neighbor ever. Our neighbor is getting a roof put on like 2-3 years ago. This old dude sat on his back porch and counted how many nails went into each shingle, and then told me about it. Is that annoying? Sure, but at the flip side of that is, like Adam was saying, you got a dude who's into everyone's crap. And something goes wrong. Hey, he loves to call the cops anyways if your dog's barking. So if he sees anything wrong, man, he's calling the cops. So for me, he's like a built-in alarm system. I don't even have to worry about half the time set my alarm system. But I think that's, you talked about, just basically being a good neighbor, right? Watching over your neighbor's property, they watch over yours. You let them know, hey, when you're leaving out of town, if you trust them, right? So
that's essentially a neighborhood watch. You put those signs up, and that's another deterrence. So somebody goes in that neighborhood, they say the neighborhood watch signs. There's another deterrence for the neighborhood. So
so I think you talked about cameras, and the importance of those, and we're going to talk about those in another podcast. We're going to talk about home security and technology with Isaiah from Madrona, but using having those signs up. I have Simply Safe as my home alarm system. I want to make sure that my Simply Safe home alarm system's yard sign is out there. And it's for me just to deter someone from wanting to come in. I have motion sensor lights all around my house. I don't have a camera system. But if you get a Ring or any of these new, any alarm system company these days are throwing in the Ring style doorbell camera system. So, if you are a homeowner, again, a small business owner, this is what this podcast series is about for you. It's just those little things. And, do your research. I talk about due diligence. I know Will talks about it a little bit. We all talk about due diligence, but look at those home, whether it's a do-it-yourself type alarm system like Simply Safe or Ring, or you go through ADT, another big brand carrier, CPI, look at what they provide. And then look at their response time as well for that. So,
now that we've talked about how to kind of deter the people, deter the bad actor, what are some things you can do to detect the bad actor? That's our second D in the 4 Ds.
So again, I think it's having some way of knowing, it's setting up, I want to say a repetitious, a habit, basically. If you're not, sitting in your living room, is your front door locked? Is your back door locked? Are your gates locked? I get the security fence or the privacy fence, that everybody else in the community's got. But I keep the gates locked because I don't want someone to, I mean, yes, absolutely, someone to jump over the fence. It's a 6 foot, pretty easy to climb over it. But I don't want to make it easier.
Maybe in our younger days.
Yeah. So, yeah, just detecting. I mean, Jake brought up the doorbell cameras. Those things are phenomenal. I've got the Simply Safe one on the front of the house there, and someone walks up the path here, and boom, it goes off. The guy delivering the package, or the neighbor knocking on the door, or whatever it is. Plus, if you ever want to pull it up, you hear something outside, you can pull it up, and you can see pretty wide view. And I got to tell you, man, I'm not trying to plug any company, but Simply Safe is pretty phenomenal. I've got the Simply Safe myself. Got all the doors and windows. It's like $25 a month for monitoring. But I will tell you, man, if I accidentally set that thing off, they call within seconds, and they, hey, everything okay? So if I was going to tell someone to go with a company that's easy to deal with and is effective, I would say that would be the company. Because I had 82 years, and they were kind of spotty about things. So
I have Simply Safe as well, and I can attest to that. Like, if you end up getting Simply Safe, or if you have Simply Safe, a little bit of advice is remember your special password code.
Yes,
because
every time I call,
my alarm has been tripped 3 different times through the kids, and I have the worst memory. And my wife's looking at me like, so they call me. And I give them what I think the passcode is, and it's not right. They call her.
Nope.
I'm like, try the other one. That one didn't work, or maybe she gave the same one. And honestly, like I know the response time in my town is about 3 to 5 minutes, because that's how long it took for the police to arrive. And law enforcement's not going to like this. However, it's not always a bad thing to trip your alarm, forget your password,
test it,
and test to see how long it takes for the police to arrive. And I'm not saying do this every week. I'm not saying doing it once a month. I'm saying just test it every once in a while, just so you can know as a homeowner, as a small business owner, what that response time is for your law enforcement.
Keep in mind that this probably won't be the same every time for the response, because it depends on where the closest unit is at. Yep. And also some municipalities will charge you for false alarm calls.
Absolutely.
So that's something to be aware of.
Absolutely. I think here where I live, I think you get 2 or 3 a year. And I've never even come close to that. I mean, it's been years in between each time it's been tripped, but every time I've kind of annotated, okay. So for me, it's like I tell my wife and everyone, hey, you have 5 minutes. You have about 5 minutes before any first responder gets to you. And so at that point, what are you going to do in those 5 minutes? It's on you. So, we've talked about the shotgun with rock salt, right? You got to know what you're going to do in that time. 5 minutes, honestly, for me, I'm very lucky. I think my parents who live out in the West Coast, major city, I think they've called the cops before, and it's been 10, 15, 20 plus minutes. So every little municipality is different. Where you grew up out in Montana, probably could have taken the sheriff or whatever the law enforcement could probably, depend on where they were, an hour or two to get to.
If they're on the other side of the county, it's going to take at least an hour. Yeah.
So what you're going to do, have that plan in place. So again, part of getting that alarm system, part of using it is testing it, doing your due diligence and knowing what that response time is. So, so we talked about, we're talking about the 4 Ds, and in physical security, there's 4 Ds when it comes to security measures. We talked about deterrence. We've talked about detection. We're going to talk about delaying. And then finally, we're going to talk about defending. And all these have a little bit of an overlap to them. So let's talk about delaying. I think we've kind of had this sprinkled conversation on delaying, but Adam, you want to explain what delaying is and, how we can use
Yeah,
it and put it into practice.
delaying is nothing, quite simply nothing more than, slowing that person down. So like I say, from the fence, is he able to just pop the fence open and walk through, or is he going to have to climb over it? Is he going to have to worry about the neighbors seeing him when he climbs over my fence? And then getting to the back door, the sunroom out here, is the door locked? And then is the back door locked? And then is the front door locked? What you have door armor on your door jambs, which is, again, here we go, plugging another company, but Door Armor or Strike Force or any of these other companies, and you can order this stuff off of Amazon for 85, 90 bucks to reinforce your door frames and your deadbolt holes and all that, to make it much, much more difficult for someone to kick your door in, breach your door. So that's another delay. And then once they get inside, is the valuables, those things that you want to protect, are they in a safe? Are they hidden? Are they just laying around? Does the wife just keep her jewelry in the top drawer, just thrown in a drawer, or is it, in a safe or a box hidden somewhere, so that once they trigger that alarm, it's going to take them a while to find the stuff and get back out. So that's what you want to do, is you want to slow that person to your utmost ability, so that the point that they, come into your home, the point where they get out of your home, hopefully in that time span, the cop is outside trying to roll them up in the yard. So
Yeah.
Well, also once
and
they
then-
get in there, you don't want to make it easy for them to open a drawer and grab and go, right? You want to kind
Exactly.
of keep your valuables in a safe, like we talked about earlier, or hidden well, or
Yeah.
and then,
Or yourself,
like,
right? Let's say you're a young mom or a stay-at-home mom, or it's your family. It's the middle of the night. Someone kicks in the door at 2 a.m. What is your plan to protect your family? How are you going to delay them from getting to you or your children, your grandchildren, or hell, even your dog or your pets, right? So having that plan on how are you going to delay them from getting to that asset. And that's why identifying that asset is so valuable and important, and knowing, like, ranking them so you can protect that asset or those assets with a lot of time period that you have. So,
and like you talked about, Jake, keeping your stuff in a safe is one thing, but if you can just literally pick the safe up because it weighs 30 pounds and just walk out the door with it, not really good. It's just identifying where the valuables might be, and then allowing them to just pick it all up and walk out the door. So, make sure that stuff is secured to the wall, to the floor, however you need to do it. If you don't have a 500-pound, cannon safe or something.
yeah.
So yeah, just slowing them down as much as you can.
I know some things, you've talked about and talked about, with homes. We've talked about upgrading your locks and, door and window jams, but also your car in the driveway. I know we've kind of mentioned this, but, you brought up a great point of, in our conversation earlier, of taking your garage door opener out of your car. And that's a little hard too, because with modern technology and all of the cars in my family, my truck, my wife's car, the garage door opener is attached to the rearview mirror now. You program it to your rearview mirror.
Same here, yeah.
And so think about that stuff too. When you want to use technology and the ease of technology and how easy it is, what are you also sacrificing for that ease? If you're old school and you don't have that, and you have that garage door opener, and most people put it up in their visor, just take it out, put it with your keys every day, bring them inside.
Don't create more vulnerabilities than you have to,
Yeah. And just like you said, you just want to delay them as much as possible, to either let them leave on their own and let the cops chase them or whatever, or allow enough time for the responders to get to the house and do what they need to do. So,
Yep.
Which leads us now finally into the fourth D, which is defend. So, and we've kind of talked about this, with a shotgun or other stuff, but can you kind of expound on this topic, Adam, of defending when it comes to the 4Ds with physical security measures for your home and small business?
I think basically, quite honestly, it comes down to what someone is comfortable with, right? Are they are they comfortable with, countering a threat with deadly force? Or, all right, if someone comes in the door, I'm going out the other door, whatever. If they come in at 2 a.m, I sleep, I've got my bedroom door locked. So hopefully I hear them and I can respond accordingly and either, set off an alarm or call the police or something to where they get scared and they run back out. I guess it comes down to, again, just what that person's comfortable with.
Yeah.
In Carolina, we have the council doctrine. Someone comes in your house and they're uninvited and unauthorized, and you're authorized to employ deadly force to remove them. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
And what
it's
we've talked about firearms, quite a bit here. And what I do recommend for people who are comfortable with having a firearm in their home, and if they do decide to use that deadly force, if necessary, there's insurance. There's concealed carry insurance up to $1 million, and look into that.
A lot of homeowners offer some sort of insurance too on top of that.
They do.
Yeah.
And some do. So look at your policy and make sure that yours does. But there's an added insurance that if you are involved with a shooting, that you can get insurance for, and it'll cover you up to $1 million for that. So, think about that. I think because of our backgrounds, again, using a firearm to us is like tying our shoe. It's second nature. It's no big deal. Train extensively and heavily with the firearms, and not everyone's that fortunate. I know a lot of people who've never picked up a firearm before in their life and are absolutely terrified. And if that's the person, my advice is don't get one. Don't get one whatsoever.
Yeah.
There's other stuff out there. You can get a taser, you can get pepper spray, you can get all that. Yeah, a dog. I mean, people really underestimate, I think, the power of dogs.
Oh yeah, people are scared of dogs, and rightfully so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
my German Shepherd is my greatest alarm system. I mean, she lets me know if anything's going on. So, and she sounds scary. So, I don't know how scary she is, but
So, there's other ways to protect yourself besides a firearm and defend yourself. And like Adam said, if you can just remove yourself from the situation safely, do it. That
better to be safe, alive and well, and everything's protected. And
that's another good point.
Repair or replace, you can do that later. But taking care of yourself and your family, it's paramount. But a lot of people, they think, oh, I'm going to go get a gun, and then they go buy a gun, and they've, like you say, Jake, they've never shot a gun. They have very little experience with a gun, or they go to the concealed carry class, and the only time they've ever shot that gun is that 50 rounds or so, and here's my application, thank you, and I'm gonna start carrying a gun, and I never go to the range, I never familiarize myself, I never clean the dang thing. It's
Yep.
I don't. There's a lot of people out there that are in that category for sure. And the last thing you would want to do is have a gun in your home and either it be taken away from you and used on you, or you trying to defend your home or your family and not being properly trained, and maybe shooting yourself or one of your family members. So definitely something to consider. Guns are deadly, for a reason.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that I know whenever somebody would approach me and ask me about using a gun for home protection or personal protection, is that you have to, before you even buy it, the number one consideration should be, are you prepared to take somebody's life? Because if you're not, then you probably don't need that gun, because there's a good chance of it being used on you if it's in there. Yeah. So. Okay.
Yeah. So we talked about the 4 Ds, and let me reiterate those again to our listeners and our viewers out there. So when it comes to physical security, we talk about these 4 Ds, and it's an easy way to remember of kind of protecting yourself and your assets. So the first one is deterrence, right? Keeping them as far away from the asset as possible. And that's in layers as well. So it starts at your property line, whether you have a fence around your house all the way around or you don't, to your actual physical home or property, to inside your home, and how many layers does it take for them to get to your assets. So think of, if you're a computer person, and you're tech savvy, think of, your firewalls of your internet and your computer system, right? You have multiple layers. So you want to do the same thing with your home and with your small business. You want to push them out as far as you can. And while you're pushing them out as far as you can, you want something that detects that movement, whether it's motion sensors, cameras, alarm system, whatever it is, a dog, to detect something interfering within your property and setting off that alarm system so you can detect and respond and know what your response time is. And then delaying, the delaying could be, again, a fence, window, door hardening devices like Adam talked about with Door Armor and Strike Jam. Making sure your doors are just locked, making sure your stuff is secure. And then finally, defending it. So if you can stay and defend it, then defend it. And whatever that defense is, make sure you're comfortable with whatever mechanism you're going to choose to defend yourself and your assets at that time, and know the laws in your own area of what you can use and what you cannot use. Here in North Carolina, where most of us are, the laws are in favor of the homeowner, and some states aren't that way. So make sure you stay up to date with the laws. It is a new year, and a lot of laws have been passed and changed. So whatever state or country you live in, make sure you know legally what you're allowed to do to defend yourself and your assets. You can't shoot someone because they're stealing your car, just because they're stealing your car. So be careful with if you're going to have a firearm, just know what you can and can't do with it. So that's my little disclaimer out there.
Can you Negan them?
Can you?
Yeah, you probably don't. Negan, you probably don't watch The Walking Dead. Adam, you ever watched The Walking Dead?
I have for quite a while.
So Negan carries around a baseball bat with barbed wire wrapped around it, and that's how he takes care of the zombies. So
Nice.
All right, so we kind of reiterated the 4Ds, and essentially we talked about layered security, right? So I want to kind of hop back to the lighting. How do you know, or how do you use the lighting? Do you just, I know we talked about the four corners and the sides and the back and front, stuff like that. Is there anything else you need to consider, or is there something else that we need to kind of be aware of?
I think the biggest thing is make sure that it's bright enough that you can see what you're trying to see, right? Without, and a lot of people who may live in an area where you're subject to HOA rules. You can't set up giant spotlights on your roof, in your backyard, but at least have enough, maybe some landscaping lighting around the edges of your fence on the inside, to where you can see behind bushes and whatnot. It's got to be bright enough to where you can see, or it's not effective, right?
Yeah.
You can't see down to your perimeter. You don't know if someone's sitting out there just waiting on you to turn off all the lights and, all right, dude's in bed. I'm going to give him 30 minutes and I'm going to try and sneak in his back window. So making sure that it's illuminating the area properly.
I know one thing that when I was first gotten in this house, I was trying to save a little bit of money, so I bought solar powered motion sensor lights, and they work great for about 6 months. But then over time, the cells don't recharge as much as they work, and now they don't work as good as they used to. So I've had to replace them and I've had to hardwire them. So I saved a little bit of money up front, but in the long run, I ended up spending more money because I had to switch over to the hardwired one. So that's just something to consider.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm not a smart guy. I'm not tech savvy that well, but I did landscape lights all around my house, the low voltage. So all you have to have is a transformer, just bringing that 110 down to 90 volts, whatever voltage it is, the low voltage that you need for your system, and just get low voltage wire, bury it under the ground, 6 inches to a foot, whatever you're comfortable with, and splice the wire. So, and mine are on a timer, and the timer changes depending on the year. Sometimes I have it for 5 hours. Sometimes I have it for 10, 12. You can leave it on all day long if you want. And so I think that, Adam, to your point, the landscape lighting is huge, and to that point also with lighting is if you do have cameras, make sure your lighting isn't
not lighting them out
camera at nighttime. So do a check, in the daytime and do a check at nighttime. Make sure that, your lighting is in cahoots with your camera operating system. So we've also talked about with the lighting, with landscape, but also your bushes. You know, what kind of shrubs do you have? What kind of trees? Where I live, we have pine trees everywhere. I've cut down well over 200 pine trees on my property. I don't have a big property. But at one point you couldn't even see my house. I couldn't see out. So think about what kind of landscaping you have in your house. Does it, if you can't see them, they can't see you, and vice versa. Right. So there's a little bit of cat and mouse game there of how much landscape you want to have to block the view. But you also want to be able to look out as well. So, and I think we're going to talk about that in our next episode as well, with Adam when he comes back with us about landscaping and crime prevention through environmental design. CPTED is the acronym for that. So, you know, we've talked about securing our home, our small business, and our property, and we keep talking about kind of like our neighbors, and you know, the word that comes to mind is vigilance, right? So, Adam, what is vigilance, and how can someone use that to their advantage at their home and their small business?
So, to me, vigilance is just being cognizant of your surroundings, you know, knowing what right looks like, what looks out of place. You know, is there someone who's in the neighborhood who's kind of, you know, loitering around, maybe parking at a certain spot, and driving through the neighborhood at night very slowly, or, you know, these people that come around trying to sell things at your door. You know, that I think back when I lived up in Hope Mills, there was a thing where they were going around trying to sell, I think it was detergent or something, where they would come out, and they would do it at like the weirdest times at night, you know, like 8 p.m. after dark. They would, you're like, whoa, dude, what are you doing? You know, you need to leave. And then you call the police, and the police come and roll them up and get them out of the neighborhood. But just being, you know, knowing what is going on around you, and maybe that is some of that, you know, that nosy neighbor coming back as a beneficial aspect for the security of your home and your small business. But what are you doing? What looks right? You know, is everything secure as best it can be? And if it's not, how do you correct it? You know? And then taking those proactive steps to fix things that aren't.
Yeah, I totally lost my train of thought there. But, yeah.
So I think being vigilant and being aware of your surroundings is important to anything, especially security. But I mean, that's in all aspects of your life. You should be vigilant and knowing your surroundings. I know we talked about earlier the response times, and we talked about maybe calling the cop or the law enforcement agency to see how fast it takes them to get there and stuff like that. Should you also call your alarm company and find out how they handle those types of situations?
So I think, Will, that we definitely, I think before you go with that alarm company, you do your due diligence and you do your research and find out how do they respond prior to purchasing that equipment and that annual plan with them. So do your research with them, find out what their plans are, how their response time is to you. And then try it out, talk to your, find out from your local law enforcement, is there a fee for a false alarm? How many do you get a year? And again, I'm not advocating that you set your home alarm system off constantly. What I am advocating for is knowing what your response time is. And sometimes it's as simple as just going to the police station or calling them and find out, hey, I live here. A lot of them have their own statistics there. And so you don't have to do that. And finding out, hey, how long is it? What is the average response time for you? So, I think that's it.
So it's just part of you doing your due diligence, asking the alarm company what they can and can't do, what they do and don't offer, and then kind of coincide or coordinate with the local law enforcement and see what they also say about it.
Yeah. And, back to the point that I forgot, Will, you brought up the neighborhood watch. association. That's a great thing. That's a great thing to get to know your neighbors. And depending on where you live, if it's a high crime area, maybe it's, and you're seeing a lot of break-ins and car thefts and stuff like that. Well, maybe you're at your next neighborhood watch meeting, or if you don't have one, talk to your local law enforcement, have them help you set up the program. A lot of them are more than happy to do that. And then at your meeting, sometimes you go on shifts, depending on what's going on and the amount of crime that's going on in that area.
Yep.
Just kind of having that little local neighborhood patrol going on at night. Or, hey, if you're like most of us here where we're insomniacs and we can't sleep, there's times I've just like hopped in the truck like, hey, you know what? I want to see what's going on. Who's coming through my neighborhood at 2, 3 in the morning, You're creeping, but you're creeping for the right reasons.
I was out driving around yesterday morning. So yeah, woke up at 3 and I couldn't sleep. So I just went out.
I thought I saw you at my window, man. It's kind of creepy, Will. So
I didn't drive that far. That's a little, the view is not worth it to drive that far.
Oh, Will, you're so mean. So, we talked a little bit about, and we're going to wrap this up here in just a bit, but, we talked about doing due diligence quite a bit. And one of the ways you can do due diligence is, and we've talked about crime and protecting yourself and your assets and everything else. And we're talking about those nefarious actors, those criminals out there. So, one way you can get a really good idea of what's going on in your neighborhood, you can go to your local law enforcement and ask them, but also, now there's applications out there on the website. One that I like to use and that we use with Freedom Consulting is Neighborhood Scout. And it's not the only one we use, but it's a great application that gives you crime statistics in your area. And it's not just, the reports that are filed by the police, because sometimes, Will, you're a police officer. I'm sure you can attest to this. There's times you went out on a call that you didn't write a report for. You didn't have to write a report. It was just kind of, you showed up and that it wasn't worthy enough of a report. What Neighborhood Scout does, though, is it collects those responses and puts them in there, whether a report was generated or not. So to me, Neighborhood Scout's pretty thorough and a good indicator, but there's others that are out there for people to use. So, just kind of go out and find out what apps you're willing to use. And, a lot of them do come with a fee. So I mentioned Neighborhood Scout, there's Area Vibes, there's Spot Crime, there's Family Watchdog, and if you just Google crime stat application out there, you'll find them there. And again, do your research on each one of those before you buy and pay a subscription. But that's a great way. Hey, if you're a real estate agent, I think it's phenomenal. You don't know what the homes that you're going into and you're representing, what the crime is in that area. If you're going to be a homeowner or small business owner and you're going to rent or buy a piece of property, do your due diligence, know what the crime is in that area. Don't just take that real estate agent's advice. Don't take the aesthetics of the neighborhood and everything to think that it's secure. I know out where I live, we have quite a few gated communities, and it's honestly the gated communities that have the most break-ins, believe it or not, which it is weird. You would think they have a gated community, they have roving guards, they have everything, but think about what's going in and out. And a lot of these gated communities, they give you like a temporary pass, and sometimes it's for a week, or sometimes if you're the gardener that's been there for years, they give you a pass and you go in and out, but there's no real control of who's really going in and out besides that person at the gate there. So, look at these applications and find out what's really going on in your area. So, Adam, I know we're having a few little technical difficulties. We were just talking about doing your due diligence with like neighborhood apps and stuff like that. We're talking about Neighborhood Scout and using those. Do you have any tips for our viewers, listeners out there with Neighborhood Scout and those forms? Well, we just lost them, but that's all right.
I love technology.
Hey, sometimes it works in your favor and sometimes it doesn't, so
it's all good.
Yeah. I know I've learned a ton from Adam and continue to learn a lot from him. Yep. He is a bank vault worth of knowledge. Yes. I mean, the guy probably forgets more about security than most of us know combined put together.
Yep, absolutely. He's a great sounding board too. If I call him up once in a while just to kind of bounce things off of him, ideas and other things. Yeah, so, absolutely.
Well, good. I hope everyone got something off of this episode, that we were able to break down the technology for people, or the terminology, not the technology, the terminology for people to understand just the basics, right? Of what is an asset, how do you protect it, what are the 4 Ds, How do you implement those? And then what are some tools out there to protect your home and your small business? So, Will, what do you got?
I want to thank Adam, even though we did lose him. Thank him, and we will see him next week when we talk about part 2 of the home security. And we're talking about SEPTED and all that good stuff. Make sure you guys follow us. You can watch, listen. Just go to www.coffeesquadpodcast.com. You can find everything you ever wanted to know about us there. Like, subscribe, follow, comment. Any questions or any comments, please let us know on all of our social media platforms. And we will talk to you next week with Adam. Will join us again. Thanks.
Thank you.